You know, we knew something big was coming, but it still hit different to actually learn what I'm going to assume is only the partial truth of the Seitei War. Sorry, I know I said the Sojo video would be in the next Kagurabachi video, but I can't not talk about this. Kagurabachi has been slowly building its themes to be bigger and more impactful since the first chapter came out, and this is really what it's been about. All this time, Chihiro's motivations have been twofold: to avenge his father's death and prevent the weapons he created from being used for evil. About 20 years too late, my dude. This series has always had just a particular relationship with violence. Sure, there are all the badass aura farming slaughter scenes, but when the protagonist does it, those are usually criminals actively trying to murder people. Besides that, one of the earliest ideas in looking at violence is the responsibility of creating weapons. Kunishige probably had good motives. I think the orphan sacrifice and super Hitler memes are funny, but looking at how the story is presented so far, he started out as a man making weapons to end a war. A war against people who essentially had amazing superpowers, even compared to the sorcery we see in the series, and who invaded Japan. And the weapons he made ended that war. But war is never as black and white as you may want to see it, and neither are people. In the same way, the Seitei War is not as clean as the people of Japan have been told, and it doesn't seem to be that clean even in the opposite direction. The islanders weren't horrible monsters, but they weren't completely innocent victims either, something that can be hard to really consider when they're all dead. The crime Samura takes issue with is the massacre of over 200,000 people by one man with one weapon. And even though I'm sure there's still more to the story, it raises the question of how complicit everyone is. What of the sword masters, who were the Sword Saint's fellow soldiers? They don't seem like homicidal maniacs, but they have the same power, and their lives are the things allowing him to not be executed despite the great danger. And what about even during his rampage? Did they hesitate to take him down because they feared for their own lives? What about Kunishige? The Sword Saint was the man he trusted above all, so he made him the linchpin of his plan. But then he committed genocide with the weapon Kunishige gave him, and that status is what keeps him alive. What about the Kamunabi? They have their reasons for the cover-up, but it's still a cover-up. What about the entirety of Japan? Could the prophesized disaster be karma? They've wound up giving the label of hero to a mass murderer. When it comes to such atrocities, where does the buck stop, if at all? We can talk about whether or not Kunishige knew his friend would lose his mind the way he did, but does it matter when the results are what they are? When Kagurabachi critiques violence, it does so through a multitude of avenues, but one of the most important ones is the responsibility of those not directly participating in the violence. Who even is Rokuhira Kunishige? People are more complicated than they appear, and he really is no exception. He gives a whole speech about the dangers of weapons and how those who make those weapons are complicit in the actions of those who they give the weapons to. But he hasn't abandoned making weapons. He's wearing a heart katana shirt when he says it. He made another one based on his current ideas of the type of katana the world needed. There's so much we really don't know about this man. So much Chihiro doesn't know. And now the children of those heroes have been entangled in everything, and Samura wants to make sure they aren't affected by the sins of the past. But Chihiro's the main character, so we're clearly confronting it anyway. Because as much as I'm sure everyone will be focusing on the first 16 pages of chapter 72, the last 3 aren't just focused on explaining Samura's motivations and lore drops, but also his relationship with his daughter. When it comes to the blind samurai, there's a lot of symbolism in the fact his eyes are closed, yet what he can't see hangs over everyone's heads with the threat of death. And all this for a man who functions best working with people who may as well not exist when they fight alongside him. So the fact Iori copies him and keeps her eyes closed in combat is clearly building up to something, especially as we don't know exactly how much she knows about the Seitei War. She keeps her eyes closed because when she sees what's happening, she gets scared and can't concentrate on fighting. Personally, I think she's gonna have to learn to look anyway, if she wants to survive. And then there's the question of what Chihiro, whose skill is based on his observational abilities, will think about all this. Because I currently have this completely unfounded theory that his connection to the island itself is much stronger than it currently appears. Honestly, this isn't a crazy twist. Okay, it has new information we didn't know that recontextualizes the past, but the general thing isn't that surprising. It's been pretty obvious the Seitei War was gonna be complicated. The Rakuzachi arc gave us a glimpse into the darkness of the Sword Saint and his weapon. Samura has been alluding to a terrible crime this whole time, and the possibility his actions are more benevolent than he's been presenting has also been contemplated. We've been talking about Kunishige being in hell for so long. This chapter isn't good because it's shocking, it's good because it makes the story better. It confirms a bunch of theories and gives us so much new information to chew on. It raises so many thematic questions and puts the past chapters into sharp detail. I, for one, can't wait to see where it goes. If you watch my videos, you've probably noticed that this is a brand new channel separate from the main one. If you like anime and manga, please subscribe and check out the 40+ videos I just uploaded here, like this other Kagurabachi video. Shout out to my patrons A and Skyman. Thank you and good day.